Hello.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, everybody. I'm Courtney.
I'm Ab.
And
Yes.
I'm Sue.
Yay! Welcome to the EnvironMental podcast. Yes.
Yep, this is our podcast where we deep dive into different aspects of sustainability. And for a while now, we've been interviewing really inspiring folks to get to know more about who's actually working on the sustainability transition. If this is the type of content that you want to see, please like and subscribe. It helps the algorithm give you more information that you want.
Yeah. Yes. Helps you stay on the sustainability train. And yes, so we're so grateful to have our next guest here with us. Who is welcome, Sue Inches.
Hi, nice to be here.
Very nice to have you. Sue is an author, an educator, and an environmental advocate, and we are so excited to have you here so we can pick your brain a little bit and hear about the incredible work that you've been doing. So thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Yes. So I guess, how would you describe the work that you do, or can you let us know a little bit about what you do?
Oh, absolutely. So I actually was a professional environmental lobbyist for a lot of years.
Whoa.
Yeah. I got to work on so many cool issues doing that. I worked on fisheries, I worked on energy codes, I worked on renewables, I worked on land use. So I've had a really wide range of experience. And then after a while, I started thinking that maybe what I needed to do was teach other people about how to do what I do. So I started teaching in colleges. And so I have a college class called Advocating for the Environment. And it's what's cool about it is it's all the hands-on. This is how you actually do it. This is how you can actually change environmental policy. And my students love this because they've learned about environmental science maybe or environmental studies. But they don't really know like how to. And they also don't know that there's actually a whole career path in advocating for the environment. So that's what I do. And then I sort of had this thought that, I get maybe 15 students in my class at a time, and that maybe if I wrote a book about this, I could reach more people. I think about that. And then behold, we had a pandemic. And so everything shut down in March. My teaching got, shut down for a while. And so it actually gave me the opportunity to write a book. And so what I did is I wrote a book. It's called Advocating for the Environment: How to Gather Your Power and Take Action. And it's a citizen's guide, to advocacy. And what I wanted to do in the book was make this accessible because, for a lot of people, the word advocacy is kind of scary. It's like big word, it's like nobody understands what you actually do, but it's actually very simple. It's about building relationships and communicating. And so my whole approach to it is that anyone can do this. It's actually pretty simple. And so that's what the book talks about, is how ordinary citizens can impact environmental policy. So that's
really, really cool. I have a lot of questions, but one of them is because you're located in Maine, right? And I think that we got connected because of Maya Van Rossum, who is also in Maine. Do you guys work close together, or how do you guys know each other? We interviewed her, I think, a month ago or 2 months ago.
Yeah, so Maya Van Rossum is the founder of a movement called the Green Amendment. And and what this is about is that she wants to put environmental rights into all of the state constitutions. And so what does that mean? Well, what that means is we want to put one sentence into the state constitution that says people have the right to clean air, clean water, and a healthy environment. It's that simple. And so Maya's running the national organization, and I'm on the steering committee for the group in Maine that's trying to do this.
Okay.
Yeah, and there are 14 states working on it, and 3 states already have these rights, and 14 of us are trying to get them. So and I've worked quite closely with her. She's awesome, as you know. She's an environmental lawyer, so she knows the legal stuff really deeply. And so she's been so helpful to us in Maine as we've worked to try to get this to happen here. So that's how I know her, and it's really great work that we've been doing. So yeah.
That's fantastic. I was like, what's the connection there? Because I know she works in Maine and has also worked in fisheries, and it seems like you guys have had really parallel lives, but who knows? Yeah. And then the other thing is that you said that I read that you've been working in public policy for a long time.
Yeah.
And you just said that it's environmental lobbyist, like you've been an environmental lobbyist. And I'm kind of wondering if you can talk a little bit about the trends and transitions that you've seen over the past past decade or so, or even two, yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Well, of course, Maine is actually a great place to be because we have a strong environmental community here. So we have been able to make a lot of gains here in Maine that I think are the envy of some other states, actually. But I guess what I would say is that, people are speaking up, and it's really a good thing that they are. Because what's going on actually in the bigger world is that corporate lobbying and corporate money gets into politics, and then the policies end up reflecting what corporations want, which is not really necessarily what you and I and regular people want. So my whole mission in doing the work I do actually is to try to get people's voices elevated, because it's communities and local people and ordinary people that matter. What corporations have in mind is not always in our best interest. So that's why it is so important for citizens to speak up. And that's why I teach people how to do it, because we need to hear from regular people, And so, but we're seeing this. Things are going in a really good direction right now. We just have to keep at it, because some of the problems are huge, as you know, climate crisis one, and the toxic crisis being the other big one. So, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that social media has played a big part in that change towards people speaking out or connecting more?
Yeah, I would say in both good and bad ways. So,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, in good ways, it's easier to organize people, across boundaries, across state lines. You get movements like Sunrise, and you get large groups of people motivated. Black Lives Matter, so it's really good that way. But of course, as we all know, social media also makes it easier for people to fall in with groups that maybe aren't so positive, and actually get taken in by false information. So we're sort of seeing a lot of that too. So there's sort of the good and the bad of social media, but it's definitely making things move quickly, but it's also making things sometimes more polarized than they really need to be.
Yeah, you'd think that something like clean air and water wouldn't be politically polarizing in any way, but that is.
Well, that's right. And the truth is that most Americans share a lot of values. Like, we all want a clean environment. We all want to be able to make a decent living. We all want a good future for our kids. Like, there's a lot of common ground, but unfortunately the media is always focused on what divides us, not what unites us. So that's just like an unfortunate thing, because actually, in fact, everybody wants a better world, and so there are ways to sort of work towards that, but we sort of forget that that's the case sometimes.
And that's why I really resonate with the subtitle of your book, How to Gather Your Power and Take Action. I feel like that is so incredible, because that's really what people need, right? Like, everybody is kind of, coming at this issue of climate change and sustainability from their own different perspectives, but recognizing that we have so much collective power is really important, and that's what's necessary in order to take action and make it actually happen. So
that's so totally true. And also, I just really want people to be empowered, which is why I gave that subtitle to the book, because sometimes people are overwhelmed. Climate change is so big, I can't really stop what the fossil fuel companies are actually doing, and people kind of get stymied, and we can't do that. We need to actually continue to move forward, and not, we do have much more power than we think we do. both individually and then, there's two kinds of power that advocates typically use. And one of those is what I call heart-based power. So that's your authenticity. It's what you believe. It's your convictions. It comes from within. So that's your heart-based power. The other kind of power that advocates use is organizing. So organizing actually brings power to where there was none before. So this has happened everywhere. Lots and lots and lots of examples. One that's kind of fun that's near me is we have this really cool group called Maine Youth for Climate Justice. And they are really good lobbyists. And so they're in high school. And they decided, I love this, they decided that they were going to get the state of Maine to divest from fossil fuels. And I'm like an experienced professional lobbyist. These guys, these high school kids came like out of nowhere. They introduced a bill and in 4 months they passed it. I mean, it was just incredible. They're organized, they speak well. They're really young. And so people are looking at them going, yeah, they're our future, right? So that's such a great example. Most high school kids feel really disempowered, right? Like we can't do anything. The grownups are doing all this awful stuff. Not this group. They said, wait a minute, we can get organized. We can pass this. And they did. And so, and they're continuing. They supported, I want to say 17 pieces of legislation.
Wow.
Legislature, and they passed 6 of them. So that is like a hugely great, no, that's as good as any top environmental group, what they've done. Yeah. So anybody organize and create power. That's what they do.
And they're the
Maine Youth for Climate. Maine Youth for Climate Change. And then their lobbying arm is called Maine Youth Action. So they have like a nonprofit and a lobbying group, but it's all the same.
Whoa.
Thing. Yeah. They're really. I'm working with them now on the environmental rights issue, and they're really excited about that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's really impressive. Just take age out of it.
Yep.
That track record is incredible.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and I think the power to be empowered, but also just to like step in and just not take no for an answer, and we're just going to keep pushing forward is really amazing.
Well, what they're good at too is like organizing people. So they have, like, if you go to their website, they have a list of all of these environmental groups at other schools that they like when they need to have like people call their legislator, they go to their list, and they have kids all over the state in different schools with different environmental groups, and they all do it. They all call their legislators. So they're organizing, they're good organizers in that way. And that's what it takes sometimes.
That's so cool. And schools are the perfect place to do that because there's big groups of people together.
Yeah.
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 Smart. That's
Yep. They're going
generation.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. What do you say to people? I'm sure that people in your classes and people that meet you, and this is a topic that we also talk about a lot on the Living Brand Directory, the feeling of disempowerment, the feeling of just being down, because you as a one person, you can't you can't fix it. There's no fixing it for one person, and that can cause so much distress. What do you say to somebody who's in that spiral?
Yeah, a couple of things. One is find a community, because it turns out there's actually social science research that shows that people who belong to a community, whether it's it could be a school group, it could be a church, it could be a group in town or neighborhood group, but people who are in a community usually tend to feel much more like they can make a difference. People that are all by themselves usually feel like, well, I can't do anything. So that's the first thing. Find other people that feel the same way and make a community. And then the second thing is take action. So there are a couple of people in the Maine Youth for Climate Justice who were, as middle schoolers, actually really depressed. Like there's serious mental health stuff going on in schools now. And I would say for each of them, what really helped them was to actually take action and do something. And so that's the other sort of remedy for feeling down, is find something positive you can do. And you can start small. You could start by like just, using cloth shopping bags or something really small like that, and then build on it. And you'll start, the more action you take, the better you'll feel. So I always say that, find community and take action, because those are the things that will get you out of the hole. And I really get it. I really understand it. I mean, we're facing some yucky, awful things. And then you read these stories about what people are doing to each other out there. I mean, everything from the war in Ukraine to, companies spreading, toxic chemicals all over the place. I mean, it's hard to like sort of fathom, like, why would someone do that? But the way out of that is to, find a community and take action yourself, and then the world will seem better. So that's kind of that's the prescription, I guess I would make.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have some questions of just like about the lobbying like process, and pardon my ignorance. I just don't really know how that works, I suppose. Like, is that something you can speak on a little bit?
Yeah, I sure can. I mean, the number one thing is it's all about personal relationships. And so, that, in fact, the place where people can be most effective is where they can easily get to know a decision maker. So whether that's like your town select board or your city council, maybe it's your state legislature, you might know somebody in Congress, but I would say the starting place is always like where you can get to know somebody, because what you're trying to do as an advocate is you're trying to touch the heart of a decision maker. So they'll do something that's supportive of the community and of life, right? So that's what you're trying to do. And the way you reach someone's heart is by getting to know them. So that's the real sort of basic beginning. And, one of the things that my students are always really surprised about is we go to the State House, on a field trip, right? And we'll be walking down the halls in there. And I haven't lobbied there professionally in over 10 years. And yet we'll be walking down the hall and people are like, "Hi, Sue. How you doing, Sue? Oh, great to see you." It's all about personal relationships. So people know you. So that's where you start. You start with getting to know people, and it could be your neighborhood association to start. I mean, or your condo association. But it's like you get to know decision makers, and then you start to tell your stories to them and share stories about what's important to you and what do you care about. Well, I really care about the environment, and I care that our neighborhood is chem free, or like I have a couple of friends that are working on. They live in like housing developments that use toxics on their lawn, and they're working to get rid of them. And that's like that's like an early, easy stage environmental campaign they can do. They're trying to get, other people in the housing development to say no to toxics. So anyway, so lobbying is all about that. And so, I lobby at the state level mostly because it's easy to get to know people. I do have a lot of friends that have done more in Congress, but the hard thing about Congress is it's so hard to access. Like security and the staff, and unless you really want to be persistent or somebody there already, it's a hard go to do. There's some groups out there, Citizens Climate Lobby is one of them that's doing a good job. And so if I were to go lobby in Congress, I would work with a group that's already established there. But in the state, it's different because it's small, and you can get to know your state rep. They're like right here in your community, and they always want to meet with constituents. I mean, people don't realize how easy that is. You can ask them for coffee or send them an email or something. So it's all about relationship building. And you don't have to be an expert on the law or on specific bills. Although it does happen often that, there's like some bill on something and you do want to weigh in on that. But it really helps to have sort of relationship built. But even weighing in on bills, you don't have to be an expert. You just need to say that you care. Like I really care about climate education. We had a bill last session to add climate education to the high school curriculum in the state of Maine. Well, 93 people, I think, testified on that, just saying, this is really important. Our school doesn't offer anything. We had a lot of students testify. Our school is not offering anything on this huge, important question that is, impacts our whole future. So students would go in and say that, we really want to have this in the curriculum. We care. And that was a great showing, and that bill passed. So it was really all ordinary people that came in and said, we should do this, and part of the bill was providing teachers with education so that they would know how to teach about climate. So, so that's a great example, try to bring it down to a level of, this is what we care about. This is what we want. We are the people. So that's lobbying right there.
I mean,
you make it sound so simple.
Yeah.
It is.
I mean, you mentioned that Maine, though, has a bit of like, has some environmental advocates already. Or how have you found like public reception for some of these issues? Like, has there been any kind of pushback?
Well, there always is. And one of the things that is an insight that I didn't really even think of till this year, but the fact is that like all politics underneath it all are about fear. And so when you introduce something new, like environmental rights is a great example. So you introduce environmental rights and the first thing people is scared of it. And so, and so then part of the advocate's job is to anticipate and then address the fears. And so environmental rights is a great story because I was sitting in the balcony of the State House when they were voting on that bill. And what I saw was each right-wing legislators stand up and say what they were afraid of. And I was like, one person stood up and said, this will make it so I can't have a wood stove. Another one said, I'm afraid that this is a way of harming the fisheries. Another one said, I have a well on my farm and I'm afraid this somehow environmental rights will make it so I can't have my well anymore. I mean, it was just like one fear after another, none of which were true. There was no truth to any of these things, but people were reacting by, here's what I'm afraid of. And then I thought, when I was sitting there listening to this, I thought, okay, that's our work. We have to go meet with that person, and that person and tell them wood stoves, no problem. Well water, no problem. So we have to really address those things. I mean, they're giving us the answer, actually. I mean, they're telling us, what we needed to go talk about. And so that's the work that we have in front of us now, is to go and address all the fears. So yes, the pushback is almost always fear-based. And so just knowing that is so helpful because then you could say, okay, that's what I need to go talk about. And sometimes the fear might be something that you have to go track down the answer. You don't even know. Like one of the things that in environmental rights, the hugest fear that I heard was that there will be like tons of litigation. Like if we have this environmental rights, then every single permit that's ever issued is going to be litigated. And that's kind of a legitimate fear, but actually it's not true. But we had to go look it up and say, okay, so how many cases have they had in Pennsylvania, in Montana, in other states where they have these? We looked it all up and got all the data. And it turned out that, there's only like 5 cases a year in those states. So it's not, and there are reasons why, environmental like permits don't rise to the level of the Constitution. And we could talk, so we explained all that. And so, so you have to address it all. But that's where the pushback comes from. People are afraid of change. And so you just have to know it and know that's part of your job and, and understand that, we all are human beings and we're afraid of stuff. So you have to kind of be forgiving about it too.
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
I get why you would ask that question and here's the answer.
It's a valid concerns. Absolutely.
It is. All of that is valid. And some of those are questions that we even had and like answered through like research and put it on the Living Brand directory because we were like, I don't know about wood stoves, you
Right.
know,
Yeah,
they're legitimate.
exactly. Yeah.
Is there a way that it's politics, especially in the States, can get really, I don't want to say angry, but it can get really, fighty.
Contentious,
Yeah.
Is there a
maybe.
way? Yeah. Is there a way that you can that you approach topics for people who are afraid without like backing them into a corner or making them feel really defensive?
Well, yeah, definitely. One of the big things about that is just being non-judgmental of other people, regardless of where they're coming from. And the other thing too is, I always try to meet with the opposition if I can. I want to invite them. Like
Mhm.
again, going back to environmental rights. We got big pushback from one organization, and so we invited them to a lunch and learn. I said, "Come on over." We had Maya come too. And we did a Zoom lunch and learn and said, we just want to like talk to you and understand, all your issues. And, I think in that 1 hour lunch and learn, I don't think we made them go from opposition to support, but I think we neutralized their opposition and allayed their fears enough so they weren't going to stand in our way. And that's,
Yeah.
it's a great strategy. If they're willing to meet with you, people that are fighting you, that's like the best. Now, some people won't do that. They won't talk to you. That's a little harder, and that's been more prevalent recently than it used to be. And that's really tough. And so then, you have to try to find somebody that's in their group that you can talk to who might talk to them. I mean, you have to kind of try to work through channels then. But yeah, I mean, the more you can do to reach out and to listen and to be non-judgmental, the better off you are. So.
And
Yeah.
like you said, I
Yeah.
think the overall kind of values of American people are generally the same. Like we all want to take care of our families, make a good living, and I think just kind of reframing things to be like, it's not going to affect your family in this way, like just
I think
normalizing it,
also,
humanizing it, I think.
yeah, I mean, storytelling is a big part of this too. And so if you can find people who can tell an authentic story about the issue, it's really hard to disagree with someone's personal story. So that's another really good way. People have, they can talk to their experience, speak to their experience. That's irrefutable, really. I mean, yeah.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah, that is. I think as you're speaking and I'm listening, I think like, you saying, well, people are sharing their fears with you. I think, yeah, take that fear and write a blog article about it and then share it, like send it to them, it makes me, it's very similar to like some of the ways we think about marketing,
Yeah.
or which I guess totally makes sense because we're working on connecting with people and it's the same thing. It just feels scarier because it's it's politics, it's lobbying, and you hear that word and you're like, oh.
But you know what? I used to be in marketing before I became a lobbyist. How about
Did
that?
you?
Yeah. I worked for a supermarket chain and did marketing for them. And it wasn't until later that I realized that lobbying is really marketing ideas instead of products. It's the same thing.
Yes.
You're absolutely right. It
Yeah.
is. It's the same skills because I was like I say, I was in marketing. I got a job in the state government to market Maine seafood. And that's where I learned about lobbying because I watched the fishermen, and they are a really powerful lobby in Maine. So they think nothing of like, oh, we got to call the governor and talk to him about this, or we got to go, to the legislature and ask them to do this thing. So they were so empowered that made me realize that they could actually change things, and that it was really about selling their ideas. And so that's when I thought, oh, okay, I've marketed groceries and seafood. Why not market environmental ideas, which I really care about? So you are absolutely right. There is a huge connection. It's the same basic thing that we're talking about, making connections with people and kind of trying to them an idea. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. That makes me excited.
Yeah. Yep.
That is really funny. Yeah, that is pretty much just exactly what we're trying to do. Kind of, yeah, we have
Yeah.
our marketing agency, but we also really want to do some of this kind of advocacy work and education work. And
Yeah.
so that's exciting. That feels good. Those are,
The other thing too is there's so much communications involved in lobbying. So like the skills have to do with boiling down an issue to 3 or 4 bullet points. I bet you've done that before.
once or
Every
twice.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are the key points, right? So that's a hugely important skill because like the legislature here gets 2,400 bills, and
Right.
they're not going to know in depth all of these things, and some of them are complicated. So what you need to do is say, okay, let's see, solid waste, what are the top 3 points they need to know? And that's the skill of it. You need to be able to do that. It's totally marketing in my mind. I mean, I learned how to do that in marketing, and then I just did the same thing in lobbying, and it was really effective. So yeah. So communicating, creating images, and in lobbying, it's really interesting because visual images are less important than they are in the rest of the world. It's more about creating images through story. So because you just don't have like the ability to put slides up there or
Right.
It's all about people talking to each other. So that's where your imagery has to be in your storytelling. You create that, and then sometimes you can bring people to a place. Sometimes a chance to do that, which is obviously totally powerful way to
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of marketing to it. It's all communications, and how you present ideas and put them forward. So you guys would be great at it. There you go.
Good.
I love to do that. I would love to do that. I think environmental advocacy would be so much fun.
It totally is. I mean, I'm a communicator, and that's how I see it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you sent us a little adaptation from your book about storytelling.
Yeah.
And the importance of storytelling, and that was so beautiful. And I'd like to use a little quote from it for the article we'll write, but if you could talk a little bit about that here also, that would be really lovely.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the one thing that citizens have in their back pocket is stories. And in environmental advocacy, it's stories about how public policies affect regular people. So, for example, you might have a sister who has asthma, and the pollutants in the air, like, give your sister asthma attacks. Like, there's a story right there that decision makers need to hear that. And there's no way to argue against that. I mean, you're telling a story about something that's happening to someone that you care about. So that's really the essence of storytelling, is trying to reach the heart of the decision maker with your personal experience and stories. So that's it's really transformative. It's hard to listen to a story, even if you're like a really hardened politician. It's hard to listen to a story like that and not hear it. And it really has impact. I mean, one thing that legislators have said to me more than once is, when I go to vote on some issue, it's not the charts and graphs and facts I remember, it's the stories I remember. So that's where the citizens can come in and talk about that. And one example that's going on right now in a very big way is there's a group of toxic chemicals called PFAS. And these chemicals have been found on farms. The farms spread municipal sewage sludge on their fields as fertilizer, and it turned out these toxics were in the sludge and they didn't know it. So now farmers are coming in to legislators and calling their legislator and saying, it was just found that there's toxics in my fields. And that means I'm going to have to shut off my farm. That's my business, my livelihood. And so, I mean, these stories are like really penetrating. In fact, we've been passing legislation here to ban PFAS with bipartisan support, because even the far right, the farms are in the rural areas, which tend to be conservative politically, but their constituents are saying, you know what, I'm out of business and it wasn't my fault, and people on the far right are going, yeah, you're right. And they voted in like $60 million to do testing and to compensate farmers. And we're just seeing the start of it. I think it's going to keep going. But so those citizen stories were like super important to getting that to happen. So that's kind of where the storytelling comes in, is just it's a way of moving people to make the decisions that you want them to make and reaching their hearts. So that's why, it's so important.
Yeah, that's really, I like the message. It's the story they remember. You can throw graphs and charts and case studies at them all day, but they remember the story.
That's right. And so smart environmental groups will find people who are willing to share their story. They'll go look for example, okay, so on, let's go back to the environmental education bill that we were talking about. So there was a good organizing behind that where, the organizers wanted all different kinds of people to come in and say why that mattered. So you get stories from students and from teachers, and then from other people who are saying this is really important piece of our education. And so you got all these different perspectives. It was really great. I mean, they covered it really well. So they organize that and try to identify people who would be good to go in and do that.
That'd be a cool job too. That's fun. Yeah, to just try to find the boots on the ground, the people that are actually affected in these areas. That's like a lot of research. It's job.
Yep. We did a climate action plan for our state. And in order to get that to happen, the organizing was really good. So they had, like fishermen and lobster people and, farmers and business people. They had like all different kinds of people come in and talk about why a climate action plan was important to them. And it was really well represented. You had all, like I said, a whole bunch of more conservative businesses, plus artists and tourism people. And it was really well done. Yeah. I think there were over 100. I've forgotten how many. There were 100, 150 people that came in on that. And it passed with a strong majority because, it was like everybody wanted this,
Yeah. What a broad variety. That's amazing.
Yeah. And that was because the organizers made a point of doing that. They're like, okay, we need, this kind of person and this kind of person. And they just reached out and did a lot of work to get people to come in and talk about their point of view. Yeah.
Spreading it out, getting people from all corners, all walks of life.
Yeah, that's right.
Happen.
Yep.
Wow. So what college, I don't know if you mentioned, what college do you teach at?
Oh, so I've taught at, I teach now at Colby College, which is a private school here in Maine. I've taught at Bates College also in the past. And then I do workshops. I was at Colorado College last April. I'm going to be at Antioch grad school in November. So I do like full courses, but I also do workshops that are shorter just to bring in the hands-on sort of advocacy and communications piece, because a lot of schools are good at teaching case studies and theory and all of that, but they don't have a good hands-on. Some schools do, but not all of them do. So I can bring that in from a practitioner point of view and say, here's this piece of it. And so it's a nice complement to what, typically gets taught in colleges. So
More tangible.
Yeah. Yep. The more hands-on, and people want to know because they want to, pursue careers maybe, or, know what they can actually do and get out of school. So, yeah.
Yeah, or also just, I can't imagine taking an advocacy course or taking, learning about it and then being like, okay, I have all this information. What do I do now? And I feel like you give them that. You're like, here's
Yeah.
what you do with all the stuff you just learned. So that's
Yeah.
awesome.
I get a lot of students that are environmental science majors, and that's exactly how they feel. They're like, well, I've studied all this stuff. Sometimes they're even depressed. I studied all this stuff. I know how badly off the coral reefs are, and
Yeah.
how much the earth is warming, but they don't know what they can do about it. So I try to bring that piece in. Yeah.
So powerful.
That's powerful and important work. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, it's fun to do too. So
You're welcome.
yeah.
It's really cute.
I love it. So,
Yeah.
how can folks get in touch? How can folks find you and stay in the loop?
Oh, great. So a couple of things. One is I have a monthly newsletter, which is solutions focused environmentalism. So it's always stories about good stuff happening. And you can sign up for it on my website, which is at sueinches.com, www.sueinches.com.
Mm-hmm.
And then the book is out there. It's has national distribution. So that means you can get it pretty much anywhere, like Amazon, Goodreads, bookstores have it. So pretty much you can find that wherever books are sold. So I would love you to get my book. The other thing I say about the book too is it's a guidebook. So it's not one that I expect people to read from cover to cover, but rather to look in it and say, oh, there's a chapter on working with the media. I need to know about that. And then you just read that part, so it's more like that. It's like a field guide.
Yeah.
But it's great to have on your shelf, because then when something comes up, you can go look at, oh, here's how I do that. So anyway, so that's out there. It's the only book that does what it does. I mean, no other book I know of really is like the book on how to do this. So
Yeah.
it's good that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Wow. Well, my goodness. I can't wait to check it out. That's amazing. I'm going to definitely go to my local bookstore and see what they got.
Yeah.
Courtney, I live in Europe, so I don't think it's here, but Courtney, can you go to all your local bookstores and find it and then put it on the front shelf where they're like, these are the ones you should read, like
Bestsellers. Yes.
sneak it up there?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. My gosh. Yeah. I cannot wait to check that out, because that sounds so incredibly helpful. And yeah, I love that kind of choose your own adventure. Wherever you are in your journey, there's a piece for you.
There's a section in there for you. Yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
I love it. Oh my goodness. Sue, thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, this has been great. You guys are awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you for watching, everybody. And we will talk to you next time.
Thanks, everybody. See ya.
Bye.